people describe you, you kind of look around and say, who are they talking about? My apologies if I fall asleep. I've been up since 2:30 this morning. I'm English, so can anybody guess what I was doing at 2:30 this morning? Watching England get through to the quarterfinals. And then I actually took a taxi to drive to Changi Airport to get here. So I've been up 7 hours already, so my day is done, kind of. And also, please excuse my scruffy look. I can't button the top part of my shirt, otherwise I couldn't speak. And I'm gonna just talk a little bit and share some experiences about why I think happiness and meaning at work is important. Who thinks being happy is important? Who thinks it's the only thing that's important? I've done a lot of leadership development and leadership training. I've lived in Asia for 26 years. And a few years ago, I began to notice that leaders on leadership workshops were complaining of stress. Anybody get that in their organizations? A little bit of stress. So I like to keep up to date. And so I started looking at what is it that helps people not be so stressed, and came across happiness psychology. Who's heard of positive psychology? Wonderful. And so I began to integrate positive psychology into my leadership programs, and had fun while doing it. And so I kind of shifted in my leadership and my team development, a whole range of things about what is it that makes us happy? What is it that gives life meaning? So my chance here this morning to share with my wonderful friends, the more I get to know HR Exchange, the more they make me laugh, because they're all wonderful people who, look, they smile a lot, smiling. Where's Sham? She's outside smiling. They all smile a lot, so I no wonder I'm attracted so much, because what a wonderful organization. So I'm going to speed through it because I only have 18 minutes. And so you've got to have 2 minutes for questions. So your questions have either got to be very short or you have to speak very fast. And by the way, Mary is my real name. When I appeared on Singapore TV to do with my book that I wrote, I prepared lots of answers, because I thought maybe they'll ask me difficult questions. The first question he asked me was, "Come on, Philip, Mary, is that really your name?" They thought I'd invented it as a marketing stunt for happiness. No, my dad was called Mary, so it's actually true. When you actually need to be happy or want to be happy, this is the most important phrase I use in any workshop I do. It takes a mindset shift. You cannot just work on behavior. You've got to work on mindset shift. Whose comment is this? Einstein, thank you, my friend Einstein. Well, actually not my friend Einstein. When you go to work, do you look like this? Or do you know colleagues at work who look like this? A lot of people say, yeah, I recognize her, him, and I definitely recognize this guy. He was somebody that reminds me of my old boss back in London when I was a family therapist. Whenever you went to talk to him, he always had a reason why you couldn't do something, and I reckon it's him. Or would you rather go to work looking like this? Or would you rather go to work looking like this? And this one's my favorite. Wouldn't you like to have this guy on or girl, I don't know, is it a girl or a guy? Okay, sorry. Wouldn't you like to have this girl on your team in terms of focus? So what I'm about more and more these days is helping leaders that I work with begin to examine what it is that causes them to be happy, what it is that causes them to be focused. Now, it doesn't mean it's like this. How many times have you had this sort of feeling? Be honest. I've had this sort of feeling sometimes, right? Life stinks. And then you have your boss and say, hey, you should be more positive. And then you say, okay, life stinks, but you've got a smile on your face. That's not authentic. It's not the way to go. It's not what it's all about. And so we're talking about being able to be happy despite your circumstances. This is a picture I shot in Bhutan when I was doing some work with the United Nations. This woman should not be so happy, right? She's a migrant worker. She's building a road. She's probably left her family behind. She's building the road from the airport to the capital. And here she was, having a cup of tea. Look at the smile on her face. To me, it was a fantastic lesson, and I love learning from whoever I actually meet. This woman taught me a lot. Of course, I'm not saying that one shouldn't do something about her circumstances and do something about migrant workers, but it tells you your circumstances are not what conditions you to be happy. It's your own attitude that conditions you to be happy. I'm going to talk about this lady, secret, I'll tell you about her later. I'm going to talk about this lady. By the way, I seem to mostly work with women these days. What day is it today, Terry? Wednesday. Last Monday and Tuesday, I was with 27 women on a United Nations Women's Leadership Program in Nairobi. And I tell you, when I work with women, I learn a great deal about what it means to be a man in all sorts of ways. So I don't make it apologies for the women, because women really can teach us a great deal. Certainly teach me a great deal. Do they look happy? Yeah. This is a team who had worked for 6 months, 18 hours a day. I'll tell you their secret later on. Does he look happy? By the way, that's me. This is a guy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about him later on too. So and I'm going to push through some of these because of the 18 minutes. What we're talking about is having a TGIM attitude, which is meaning what? Thank God it's Monday. How many of you look forward to Monday morning? Okay. How many of you in HR and training? Silly question, right? You've now redefined your job. Your job is to inculcate this attitude in your staff. Because if your staff don't have a TGIM attitude, how on earth are you going to get them to be productive? So the good news about happiness, the good news about meaning, it actually obviously helps the individual to be happy, but all of the studies say that it actually increases productivity and increases engagement. So it's important for a variety of reasons. Or do you have this attitude? What's this mean? Oh my God, it's Monday. Does your staff look a little bit more like this, getting ready for the next conflict? We try and pretend it doesn't, but all of the teamwork that I do, most of it is problematic. Why? Because there's unexpressed conflict that people push under the table, and all of the conflict goes into their body. And people feel tense, and people feel stressed in all sorts of ways. So I decided I wanted to do something about it. Here also is a reason to do something about it. In terms of engagement, productivity loss through disengaged employees, I don't know how they calculate this, but Gallup, a noteworthy organization, look at what Singapore lost 2 years ago through lack of productivity due to lack of engagement. 3 billion. I don't know what the statistics for Malaysia are, but I guess they're probably a lot more than Singapore, right? Bound to be more people in Malaysia. And so I came across positive psychology, which I've talked about a little bit. I met Martin Seligman, and I brought him to Singapore. He's the founder of positive psychology. And what I'm going to do is begin to share with you some aspects of what positive psychology is about, happiness psychology is about, and how that can maybe help you leave my session in 13 minutes' time happier than you were when you started it. Is that a deal? I'll try and make it a deal. This is basically positive psychology. Freud and 100 years of psychology said what? If you're seeing a psychologist, there must be something wrong with you. Because we don't tell people that we're seeing a psychologist, right? You didn't tell anybody, Lewis, that you're seeing a psychologist, did you? No, you look too happy. We don't shout it out. And we don't shout it out because for 100 years, psychology has been problem-oriented. i.e., you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist to deal with your problems. And in order to get you to be, I'm going in the middle now, normal. Is that what we go to see a psychologist for? Please help me be normal. Martin Seligman came along, and he was president of the American Psychological Association. He said, to heck with that. He said, that's the wrong path for psychology. I want to get us to become +5, meaning I want psychology to help us get to a situation where we are thriving. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you don't sometimes need this, because sometimes people need to be able to get to normal. But he said, what I want to focus on is how do we get just normal, ordinary people to be much happier than they currently are and to be thriving. I'm going to quickly go through these. And what I discovered in a variety of research and teaching and reading was that there are basically 3 keys to being happy. One is to have a life of meaning. One is to lead an authentic life. Oh, sorry, and I've forgotten. I've got handouts for you. You see? That's what comes of watching England at 2 o'clock in the morning. Could you give those out? Don't give out my boarding pass and my flight details. Look, there's notes there on what I'm saying. Boom, my head's gone. Meaning, a life of meaning, a life of authenticity, and a life of connection. If you use this model, and obviously we call it the Mac model, and Apple haven't sued me, and McDonald's haven't sued me, so I keep on using Mac model, and Singapore government were very nice to actually copyright it for me, copyright authority. So you need a life of meaning, a life of authenticity, and a life of connection. And if you apply this to whatever situation you're facing in a team, in an individual, even in your own life, then you'll be a lot happier than you necessarily are. Why is this important? Average adult spends a quarter of their life working. You see more of your work colleagues than you do of your family.